Welcome to Selling Circular, the podcast dedicated to exploring the innovative minds and business models shaping our transition to a circular economy. I'm Garpunit, CEO of LoopLayer. We are not joined this week by Sabira Lakhani, but is still a special episode because today we dive into the intersection of two massive global challenges and a solution that might make you squirm, but also will make you think. The global fertilizer market is projected to reach nearly $277 billion by 2034. And at the heart of that market are three essential nutrients: nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Here's the problem. Scientists have been warning about peak phosphorus for years. Say that one more time, peak phosphorus. Meanwhile, wastewater treatment plants across the United States spend billions annually managing the very same nutrients that farmers desperately need. So we've got peak phosphorus, which is where everyone's going to be needing it, and that finite resource is going to be in higher demand, and yet we're still throwing it away. And so somewhere between the flush and the field, we're literally sending liquid gold down the drain. Enter Thor Retzloff, co-founder of Wasted, a public benefit corporation based in Vermont that's reimagining portable sanitation industry through the lens of circular nutrient recovery. Thor is actually not your typical sanitation executive. He's actually a professional skier and a backcountry adventurer, one who actually really cut his teeth on storytelling and adventure media before pivoting into one of the most unglamorous and arguably most essential waste sectors of the economy. So we got to talk about Wasted, which has currently already raised some seed funding and used that funding to get to the scale in which now they've already registered some of the first urine-derived fertilizers in the U.S. in 5 states, including California. And so why that's important is recent research really confirms that nitrogen from processed urine can be absorbed by crops by up to 25% more efficiently than conventional inorganic fertilizers. And in a 2025 scientific review, we confirmed that actually urine fertilizer technologies are considered safe and effective. This conversation was wild, surprisingly profound. I told him this in the interview. He made my job incredibly difficult because as an interviewer, you need to be taking in the information, geeking about the information, and then also processing your next question. And so it was just packed with me trying to learn, engage in the material while also looking to the side and trying to get my questions ready. And it's just filled with entrepreneurial lessons. So here's my conversation with Thor of Wasted. You've set us up on a good trajectory of reviewing that founder's journey. And for you all, quite literally a journey. I mean, not many people are doing the backcountry thing, and I'm a fairly urban circular economy guy. So that is not in my realm of where I often go. Talk to us about that a little bit of the aha moment that you all witnessed.
Okay, so I've got 2 co-founders, right? Tay Zarin and Brophy Tyree. And we actually aren't just the co-founders of Wasted. Our journey down this sanitation path actually started prior with a nonprofit called Do Good Shit, right? And so like the initial aha moment for us was essentially coming to witness massive amounts of human waste in remote mountainous regions around the world, right? And this happened kind of in different segments. Like in South America, Tay saw it firsthand. I saw it firsthand on Mount Everest on the base camp track. Brophy saw it elsewhere. And it was one of those things where like we came together like, oh my God, we need to do something about this super specific problem: human waste management in remote mountainous communities. And so that's like 2018, right? So almost 8 years ago now. And we bonded around this mission, this idea of like, hey, like, how are we going to recreate in these places when you have to climb a pile of poo to climb the mountain in a decade? Like, that doesn't make any sense. So, we do some research online and we started looking into it, like, well, who's putting toilets in these remote places? And we didn't really find anyone. And so we took that idea and we're like, okay, we're going to go do the good shit. We're going to quite literally do good shit as a 501c3 nonprofit. And that was like this launch into it. Right.
I kind of love, there's so not only are you trying to do that good shit, you're doing also the hardest thing first. You're going to the remote parts of the world
Right.
and being like, all right, we got to figure out how to drop these things in
Right.
here.
And
Learning curve there?
well, I think that, zooming out of the specific content for me, it's this realization that you need to work on things you're passionate about. Right. And so for me, it was, I want to go recreate in these remote areas because that's what gives me that life, that energy. Right. I want to go to these places and put on my skis and witness pure raw beauty, etc. And if this pile of human waste is gonna, infringe on that opportunity for not only myself but others, like I'm gonna become passionate about that. And I don't care how hard it is because that's where my alignment starts. And so, like, for us, we didn't really see it as necessarily a hard thing, right?
Yeah, that's
It was
fair.
just so directly relevant to what we cared about.
Uh, that's great. And then can you talk a little bit about that transition? Then we'll get into some other specifics about how you message the mission,
But
but a little bit of the specifics around starting as a
yeah,
nonprofit. I think that's, I'm kicking around some models myself.
yeah,
That is not the most traditional path towards a for-profit spin
yeah,
out, or a new
right.
business. Can you talk a little bit about, again, why that was so mission aligned, how that sort of fueled at least getting I was about to say getting your feet wet, but getting your sort of your placement in this
Yeah.
industry, how that helped, why you think that was a good start, maybe what you learned in there too along the way.
Yeah, I mean, that was pivotal for us, right? I've always been an entrepreneur of sorts, just trying new things, like the idea of circularity has always kind of been in my mind.
Love it.
But for do good shit, the the reality to go the nonprofit route was kind of like we were just young entrepreneurs. I was 20, 22, 23 at the time. I was like, of course you would go start an NGO to go put toilets in remote places and use philanthropic support, right? Like that's how you do it, right?
Duh.
And so
Yeah.
with that, we like moved forward with it. And the way that we've really actually um, used in the positive sense. We use this nonprofit umbrella as a mechanism to step into rooms and say, "Hey, I'm here to learn. I'm not here to extract. Like I'm here to step in here and,
Yeah.
and gain as much information I can about this hyper specific thing." And so one of the biggest what I call entrepreneurial epiphanies that happened to us was in 2019, right? Tay and I were sitting with this opportunity to go install toilets down in Torres del Paine, known as the eighth wonder of the world. Exceptional place, super beautiful. And we all of a sudden hit this realization that we have no idea what a toilet is. And I say this like, what is a toilet? What does it do? Why water? Where
Like,
does
what
it
are the
go?
actual
What
mechanics?
is a wastewater treatment plant? What is pee? What is poop? Like all of a sudden, all these questions around like, okay, well, what's actually going on? We start to ask ourselves. And so one of our mentors, his name is Jeff Hill, who's a brilliant entrepreneur and integrator. He is running this company called Toilet Tech, and he's like, "Hey, why don't you guys go and do a 3-month long toilet tour?" Right? So we get in the back of our car and we drive around the West Coast of the United States for 3 months, living out of this car, taking apart every single backcountry toilet, composting toilet facility. And I'm talking like remote 5-mile campsites to Camp Muir on top of Mount Rainier. And so we would do fun shit like, let's go clean a toilet, summit the mountain, come back, clean another toilet, and then descend. And so we were like really playing into this adventure with purpose, climb mountains, do fun shit, and then also take care of the shit. But where that led us is that all of a sudden, after 3 months of arguably the dirtiest, most humbling work I've ever done, and I'm like, it was disgusting, it was horrible stuff. We walked away with this first principle, this thesis that we stand on to this day, and that is that when you immediately separate pee and poo at the drop point, then everything downstream of that is significantly easier to manage and has higher potential.
I was curious about, I saw that in the model of the developing of that toilet system, that separation system, and we'll get into that.
Yep.
What came out of then that trip?
Yep.
Where did the sort of this thought process go of, okay, how do we take this to the next
Right.
level?
So it's 2019, middle of 2019. We are now convinced with the concept of urine diversion dry toilet, right? We now know we're like, okay, all these toilets we looked at, if you separate pee and poo, it works. We're now going to take this flagship conveyor toilet and make it the centerpiece of our solution for the nonprofit do good shit. So we essentially said,
Got
hey,
it.
we identified the toilet that works, and we started installing that toilet in places all over the world. Chile, Nepal, Argentina, got projects funded, started doing it. And we were like gung ho, we're running this nonprofit. This is what I want to do. Climb mountains, install toilets, beautiful life, right? That was happening. Early 2020 comes around, COVID hits, right? So now we have funding kind of goes out the door, international travel put on hold. And Tay and I are sitting on our hands. Now we know way more about pee and poo than I ever signed up for. But here we are in quarantine, and we're kind of just like evaluating what we learn from Do Good Shit and where are we at? How are we going to like keep on going? Like, what's our job? Literally, like, what are we going to do for jobs? And that's really when this second entrepreneurial epiphany surfaced, right? And the moment in time that really kind of struck us, and I credit Jeff Hill to planting the seed originally of urine as a resource, but the thing that really caught my attention was in August 2020, while in quarantine, I attended a remote urine summit, right? And so this nonprofit called the Rich Earth Institute, they host this urine gathering every year where they bring together the world's minds to talk about how valuable pee is, right? I remember buying a $5 donation ticket and I'm like, 3 days, let's go check this thing out. By day 1.5, Tay and I are like glued to the screen. We're like, oh my God, human pee is liquid gold. Human pee is liquid gold, right? It is quite literally nature's fertilizer. It is liquid NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. And you have all these brilliant people talking about how valuable our waste stream is, and like it's going down the drain with fresh water and it's contaminating water, and all of these things are just coming up. And so we combined epiphany number one, separate pee and poo, with epiphany number two, pee is liquid gold. And we're like, hey, let's pivot from the nonprofit model and let's go start a benefit corporation, one that makes profits, to then drive those profits into the nonprofit, right? And so the impetus of Wasted was to go and be the mechanism to do that. And the most cash efficient way to do that was to start a porta-potty company. And so that was like the inner workings of how we landed on dealing with pee and poo in this way.
That does answer one of my questions, which was what was first? It was the urine and the utilizing urine as a resource first, or the disruption of maybe the porta potty industry first. And clearly I think that's the order of, then you all start to realize, okay, we need to figure out source separation. Was there ever a thought of going to the existing industry players and trying to work within their model and trying to sort of innovate within, or was it always external?
Yes, for sure.
Okay.
So quick history lesson, right? There's
Please.
been like 2 major advancements in the portable sanitation industry in the past 100 some odd years, right? This industry really took off post World War II. A lot of vets coming back, looking for a job, working hard, etc. You start making like a wooden structure for construction sites for your workers to go to the bathroom. That goes to fiberglass. In the 1970s, that fiberglass essentially got replaced with plastic. And as for all intents and purposes, like that was the last major innovation, was switching to plastic
I mean, probably
microstructures.
we got a little, maybe a sink. Maybe there's a sink in there that you get
I'm
a little
like,
bit of fingers.
I'm like blanketing over all these things. But like as far as
Yeah, I
major
get
like
you.
disruption goes, it was
Yeah,
like a
totally,
total
totally,
material
totally.
shift. And so you have what would be, you know, a way of existing, a way of doing with what is typically generational family business, right? You drive
Yep.
this truck, it has these tanks, here's the systems, and those systems work and they provide a sanitation offering, et cetera, et cetera. And so in 2020, when we started Wasted, we went to local operators and said, hey, let's put its own urine container inside this little structure so that we can turn the pee into fertilizer. And they're looking out there like, okay, so I have to buy a new toilet, and you're telling me I have to get a brand new truck that has a designated tank in there for just urine that has its own hose, and I have to store that pee, or you guys taking the pee. And so all of a sudden you have this infrastructure problem, right? And
Yep.
where we land is like, okay, the proof is in the pudding. Where we need to go to the industry and when we need to go to the industry is when we say, hey guys, it's been a long 6 years, 7 years. We have officially proven that not only is it more impactful to separate your pee, but it's more profitable. Here's the infrastructure. Here's where you take the waste. This is wasted, right? We're now like, that's where we're going in the next year.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
where
Yeah.
we're going.
That's incredible. Speaking to then the design work, what was that like in terms of then getting, well, your hands dirty, and I think
Yeah,
that we're going to be
dude.
keeping using that language, but in terms of designing a new porta potty,
Yeah.
I mean, a new system, what was that like in terms of putting that cap on, learning a new skill
Oh
set,
man.
trying to make that happen?
Product development. Hey, shout out to all the product developers out there. No joke, right?
Yeah.
Thinking through
Yeah.
every single nuanced product requirement, the necessities behind it, what's a nice to have, what's not. Oh my God, the list goes on and on and on and on. And we really started on extreme mode because we built it from scratch, right?
Yeah.
And I reflect on my entrepreneurial journey, and there's so many moments like, wow, we could have done that way cheaper and way easier, but here we are now. Right? It's just how it goes. And so early on, we essentially said, hey, blue sky, let's build a porta potty from scratch. What does it look
Yep.
like and what does it do? And so our early product development was developing our own proprietary store separation toilet mechanism, right? And as you can imagine, you've got like a flat plane, and you go to the bathroom, it's on a slight slant, so the pee goes out the front. You push a foot pedal, that moves horizontally, poop gets scraped off, gets replaced, clean
Mm.
sheet. And so you're effectively doing this source separation. We took this little mechanism and we put it into this 450-pound, uber beautiful aluminum octagonal structure, right?
Was this the first model, for the audience just to describe it? Was this the first model that was on wheels and went to a location? Am I thinking of that
So
correctly?
this was the first ever model. We literally called this one the alphas,
Yeah.
right? So we
Okay.
deployed 5 alphas in total. We deployed it
Okay.
to the Rich Earth Institute in Vermont. We deployed it to a campsite in California. Um, we had another demo, oh God, on the East Coast, another campsite, and then one is still in our hub today. But what this alpha unit did is, one,
Is that the one in Providence? Was there one in Providence?
so
Do I remember
that's a
that
new
correctly? Or...
product. We can come around to that one in a second.
Okay, got it.
But that's a
We'll
good
come
full
around to that.
circle.
Yeah.
Don't let me forget that, because that is a full
Okay,
circle
got
moment
you.
for me as a founder. Um,
Got it.
So we go build this alpha unit, and pretty immediately we realize, one, it's not portable. It's 450 pounds. It's
Mm.
aluminum, and the mechanism works probably 80%, right? And when it comes to toilets and product R&D testing with a toilet, if you have to have someone change their behavior, they're going to pee on the sign and say no. It doesn't work. It does not work. You need it to be so intuitive, and if someone has to poop, like, don't get in their way. They're going to do whatever they want and whatever they have to do to go to the bathroom. Like, there's no options there, right? And so
Yep.
we pretty immediately were like, okay, we need to pivot. We need to pivot quick. But what the alpha did for us is it allowed us to launch this story, right? And the thing
Mm.
about Wasted that I get so excited about, technically as a co-founder, I'm also the CMO. And so like my whole thing is like, how do we build Wasted as the vehicle to break down the taboo about talking about waste? Like, there's a very bold reason why we're called Wasted. Like, let's talk about
It's
pee and poo,
it's
right?
it's a great irreverent brand. It's you're crushing that model. I think that's what got my attention. It was like I could just tell where it was like, "Oh, what a great way to speak about this so
Right.
candidly and then so kind of in your face, really." I mean, with the orange too, if people look it
It's
up, I
loud,
mean, there's just a real reason to it's loud to catch the attention and then to
right?
educate, which is also critical.
Right.
Yeah.
Now that we got your attention, hey, pee is really valuable,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
this alpha unit gave us this cornerstone to stand on and say, hey, look at these beautiful assets. I've got photos and videos. I'll send you an RY video after this, but look at, we're dreaming big here. And I know that this first product iteration is not the perfect product market fit, but this is where we're going. Like, we're going to kind of come back to this, right? Like, this is where we're going. And so from there, we essentially developed beta units where we said, okay, a big metal structure that we fabricate in downtown Oakland is not scalable to 3,000 toilets in a market, right? So let's go off the shelf, work with existing manufacturers to get a plastic structure. That was a compromise. I'm like, I don't want to use plastic. Tay didn't want to use plastic. It's really hard to like have this like ideal vision, and then all of a sudden you're using virgin plastic to provide a toilet. And so obviously you navigate through that and you say, okay, well, don't let perfect be the enemy of progress, right? Like, we need to keep on going here. There's something here. So we take an off the shelf plastic toilet and we put our mechanism inside of it, right? And just to clarify here for all the listeners, the point of the mechanism is to collect pee from all users, standing and sitting users, all users, right? That's why you need a mechanism.
Got it.
Okay.
Big distinction. I wasn't even thinking of standing. Of course.
Right.
Yes.
So that's the main distinction there, is like you need a mechanism to collect from sitting users, right?
Yep.
And we go and we deploy about 12 of these beta units, and we're now in Vermont. We moved over there for launch VT, and we're kind of getting the market up and running. And the mechanism still is not working perfectly, right? And so it's one of those things like, we need compromise again, right? We need to go and get toilets out to start collecting pee to see what's possible. And so we continue to use off the shelf plastics, but this time just from standing users, right? And so when you see a wasted unit in Boston, so we operate in Burlington, Vermont, as well as Boston, Massachusetts, greater Massachusetts area. When you see a wasted unit, you're going to see a patented wasted urinal. What that is that it's a urine tank that standing users use, and it collects about 10 gallons. And then if it overflows, it goes in the main tank, but we're only collecting pee from the standing users in our standard plastic portable toilet, right? And so
Right.
ultimately that was like, hey, like, this is the direction we're going. And um, this is how we can start collecting pee and getting these proof points going, right? Um, and so, like, that's kind of a long-winded way to answer your product development question, but to kind of just like point out some key pieces. Doing product development for pee and poo is horrendous.
Yeah, why I ask it is, we talk to so many circular economy leaders, and what we find in this space in circular economy is you're having to make those decisions of which wheels do you need to reinvent and which ones do you not.
Yes.
And that's often then you're trying, and then that ultimately educates you and slots you in to a business model
Yep.
that ultimately then some of these things kind of reveal themselves as you're working within the existing industry.
Right.
Because in this one, I think this is a great example of an industry similar to, we had an entrepreneur talking about tires and products they're making out of tires, where it's like those are hard codified industries
Yes.
to change, and so you have to work within.
Yes.
And so I think it's just a great example. Are we at a full circle moment yet for Providence, that product?
We are, right? And so,
Okay, great.
so here we are. We started operating our first ever rentals. Actually, wasted fun fact here. Our first ever contract was with Ben and Jerry's on Ben and Jerry's
So
free
cool.
cone day in April 2023. So like, we brought our
Oh,
whole team out. We ate ice cream till we couldn't move. Super fun. But all of a sudden, boom, Waste's in the market. We're the new porta potty people, and we're turning pee into fertilizer, right? Meanwhile, we're growing with these toilets that collect from standing users. In the back of my mind, I'm thinking about the alpha. I'm thinking about the 50% of the population, the sitting users, and that valuable pee we could be collecting, knowing that the only way to do that is to have more robust infrastructure, right? And so the full circle moment for us here happens when this wasted conveyor, or this conveyor technology, becomes available to us to essentially put it into our product fleet. And what I mean by that is,
which
go ahead.
which again, for the listener, that's kind of where that's origin idea, right?
That's do good shit days.
this is that circle.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
got it.
So like, I personally have been working with this conveyor belt for almost 8 years now, right? And this conveyor is built and was designed in the Alps in Europe, right? And so it's
Mm,
a French manufacturer that's making this toilet for very high profile remote huts. And all of a sudden the application goes from national parks, state parks, backyards, homes, da, 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 like the list goes on and on and on. And so the guy Jeff Hill, the mentor I mentioned from Do Good Shit, he's like, "Hey Thor, I see what you're doing with Wasted. Do you want to distribute the conveyor on the East Coast and integrate it into Wasted?" I'm like, "Absolutely." Right. And so now we're working together to bring the conveyor in house. It was at that moment where I then saw the opportunity. I'm like, okay, now that we have the most robust urine diversion dry toilet on the market, let's put a structure around this thing and see if the market is has an appetite, right? And so what we did is took the conveyor, figured out the schematic for poop goes here, pee goes there, use a little solar flout, pump it up, 100-gallon, put a structure around it, boom. We now have a 6x8 skid-based portable toilet that can serve municipalities, parks, rec, you name it. And that is what we launched this last year. And since then, we've been
got
working
it.
with the city of Providence. We've got a farm in downtown Boston, working with Stowe Mountain Resorts. And now people are really looking at it like, oh my God, this is like the ideal bridge between a porta potty experience and tapping into a sewer line. That's the donation station. And that's the full circle moment. That's like originally what we dreamed of.
I want people to note that term you just said, that what how it's branded, of donation station. That's incredible. I think that's such a friendly way to put it.
Right.
And we're going to kind of transition here into, how do you talk about this idea?
Mm.
How do you sell these concepts? And I think, so kind of really that first, it's like when you're at that dinner party, when
Yeah.
you're at an event of some sort, how do you move someone who asks, how do you move them from gross to genius?
It's a good question. Dinner parties are hilarious. And
Yes.
um, candidly, because usually you're at dinner and usually people are saying, "Hey, what do you do?" You know? And so I
Hmm.
try to like not say what I do until people are really like, "What do you do?" But immediately the initial reaction is, one of those like, "Whoa, like pee and poo, really?" And what comes next is this wave of enlightenment, of realization. Hey, are you a living human? You go pee and poo every day, hopefully. Um, and you're part of this much greater ecological harmony. And wasted is just a conduit to return us back to a more natural way of being. Right. And
I
go ahead.
no, I think that's so interesting that you're right. It's so, some of these concepts, they're so to the core.
Yeah.
And we've heard this when people explain, no, this is what I'm doing. People go, oh, actually, no, that makes total
Yeah.
sense. And so the only thing that I was going to say was, you all probably, I mean, knowing your marketing here, uh, you probably have a kid's version of Everybody Poops, the wasted version, somewhere in line along your education, coming down.
Yeah. I was gonna coin the new book, Everybody Pees, but there's already a version out
Great.
there. But like the wasted
Oh, is it
version
right?
of Everybody Pees
Yes.
is essentially doing that. And the analogy I
Yeah.
use and the thing that we always come back to is biomimetic messaging, right?
Yep.
How has nature managed waste given the understanding that waste does not exist in nature, right? It's not even a concept because nothing is actually wasted. And so, I always go back to the heartbeat of these entrepreneurial epiphanies. So the first one, source separation. I say, when you take your dog on a walk, it's going to pee here, walk 10 feet, and poop there. That source separation, that is very intentional on nature's part, right? That is a programmed distribution of nutrients that has been established for millennia, right? Humans, when we are migrating on a more frequent cadence, our anatomy, literally, when we would squat, we would pee here and poop there. That's very intentional, right? And so once you start carving out, okay, well, why do we use the toilets with fresh water? It's purely out of convenience. It's out of a settlement of the human social infrastructure that allowed us to say, hey, like let's centralize our waste and use fresh water to get rid of it. That's all out of convenience. When in reality, in a natural way of being, we are separating the two. And so wastage rule And then it's like, okay, well, if that's the way you do it, how do you do it? I'm like, okay, well, I have the toilets for you. And wasted then becomes your utility company. Like we're the urine utility company for managing those nutrients and helping those get back into the earth.
How do you work within the existing procurement systems? Has that been a challenge? Whether that's on the municipal level where there's a gear that has to turn for them to get it, or the right official maybe needs to be in place for them to be like, oh no, this makes total sense. This won't be a problem.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's been a conversation. How have you all sort of tackled that or are continuing to sort of hurdle those barriers?
Yeah. So there, the saying is that if you're on the cutting edge, you're going to bleed a little bit.
Yeah.
Right. And so as far as like the cutting edge of registering fertilizers and all that, we're the first company in the US to do all of that urine-derived fertilizer application and registering, which has been fantastic. And those are really the sale assets to then go and sell toilets. And so let's take a standard RFP, request for proposal for a municipality's um, portalet needs for the summer season, right? Typically, it's the lowest price wins. Right. That's like industry standard because it is a perfectly competitive market, right? Everyone has a plastic toilet with blue goo and toilet paper and some kind of service that accompanies that. In my ideal world, where we push towards is we add a caveat that says urine recycling or nutrient recycling favored, right? So now you've got the opportunity to go and bid on projects that are favoring recycling these nutrients, which one benefits the municipality because it's good look on sustainability, but also at their wastewater treatment center, they're saving energy by not processing peat. Just to zoom in real quick, there's a good little nugget. In a standard, I'm just gonna like use an average here. Like in a standard wastewater treatment plant, urine by volume is about 1%.
Mm.
1% by volume in a wastewater treatment plant, right? In that 1%, that urine contains 60 to 80% of the nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium moving through that wastewater treatment plant. And the majority of the costs involved at a wastewater treatment plant are managing and mitigating those organic elements. Right. And so when we pull those out, not only are wastewater treatment plants like, hey, high five, thank you so much, but we're then saying, great, we're actually going to take this pee and not only process it, but then make sure it gets back into the hands of people that need these NPK. And so it's a win-win-win, and that's the story that we're moving towards and using for, the RFPs. But the reality, guys, is like we're not there yet. We need to educate people around why that's so important and what that means. Like, what is NPK? What is separating urine doing? And so, like, we're getting there, but it's going to take more time.
On that time then, you're we started off talking about the productization of or multiple avenues of products that are being developed. Can you talk a little bit then about okay, so you've got the at least one model that I guess you have the rental model. Is there a more permanent model for a city? Okay, so then there's
In
what's
like
that
an
model look
apartment
like?
building per se.
Could be, yeah. Is that that's something that's being
Yeah.
explored? And then now we can get into the productization of the thing you're creating, or the accessories, or however you want to say it, that go into the actual models, the actual porta-potties or other structures, which is the toilet paper. So you've got Wee Bloom, and then you've got the wipes, which I'm already forgetting the name of. If you
Wasted
can say
wipes.
them again, so people, thank you. The wasted wipes. Can you talk a little bit about those origin stories? I mean,
Mhm.
what was that process like for? I'm forgetting the scientific names of because actually, I think this is how we also first kind of introduced or at least I introduced myself to you a long time ago, which is I did a short documentary on pee cycling, and I
Yes.
was fascinated by it, by the sciences that were going into
Yep.
it. So talk a little bit about the science aspect of this with the We Bloom
Right.
product, because that's how you're biding time of, as you're educating the public, as you're getting more of these porta potties out in
Yep.
use, you also are creating something that can give you all more runway, can give you all more product
Right.
leverage. Can you talk a little bit about that process of the creation of We Bloom,
Yep.
as well as then if you want to get into wasted wipes?
Yeah. So it's a great question, and I'm going to frame it up in some internal company language that we use.
Great.
Okay.
Yeah.
We call it opening the loop and closing the loop. And so we've essentially
Excellent.
divided our company into two teams that work in concert, right? Our team that opens the loop is our operations team that rents and services sanitation offerings, potties, donation stations, collecting pee, etc. And so that, for all intents and purposes, is our current, you know, um, revenue driver for wasted, right? So we're renting all these toilets, we're collecting this pee, and we bring that pee back to our facility where we then store the urine, right? And so you're opening a loop by saying, hey, we're going to take what would have been going to the wastewater treatment center and bring that into our own circular ecosystem, right? And so once the pee goes from the truck into our hub, we call it the wasted hub, this urine is now in storage. And that's when it goes from opening the loop to closing the loop. Now, what we're essentially viewing this as is here's a effectively free feedstock that has the potential to be upcycled into higher value, right?
Great.
And so our team that works on closing the loop is essentially analyzing what is a holistic urine stream and says, okay, what is the most effective way to get these valuable nutrients back into the earth? And just, as far as like the science goes, the main way I want you all to think about pee is it's nature's fertilizer, right? It's liquid NPK. For those of you that have ever gone to the plant store or know about fertilizer, those three numbers, the 5, 10, 15, or whatever it is, that is NPK ratios, right? And so that's kind of the standard nomenclature and way that people talk about fertilizer, right? And so this P has a specific NPK that we go and apply to, that's our goal is like, okay, how are we going to go close this loop? And so for us, we then um, push it through a pretty standard processing procedure, right? And one of the things that we're analyzing is like, well, what does this processing look like on scale? Because to date, we've
Mm,
only been processing upwards of 15, 20,000 gallons of pee when we're
only.
forecasting to be collecting 500,000 in the next 18 months, gallons of pee, right? And like that, all of a sudden, it's like it becomes like a real thing.
Okay, so that I want to get us back to that, you just kind of unlocked another question,
Mhm.
which was I just didn't even think about the scale of what then you're trying to
Oh yeah,
accomplish. Can you paint the picture a little bit of what you all are trying to do differently than what a standard porta potty company does with their product? Do they just input that back into the system and it's not their problem?
it's a great question. So this is one of the big business model levers, right? And
Yeah.
since I just explained the opening and closing a loop, I'm going to zoom in on that pass off, right? So if you have a
Yeah.
standard porta potty operator, they go and they suck out the blue goo, right? It's one
Yep.
big mess, right? TP, poop, pee, suck it out. You then drive that truck to a tipping facility, typically a wastewater
Mm,
treatment plant, and you pay per gallon, cents on the dollar, to essentially give that to the wastewater treatment plant. Not my problem. You take care of it,
got it.
right?
Same as a landfill.
Same
Yep.
concept. So that trade-off right there, where urine in most porta potty is about 60 to 70% of the waste, wasted now is negating those tipping fees
Mm-hmm.
because we're taking that urine and processing it ourselves with a revenue model for what that urine waste stream was. And so it's a dual lever, right? Cost savings, cost avoidance from now we don't have to tip as much waste. and then revenue potential by saying, hey, here's Weebloom. Here's a phosphorus-rich powdered fertilizer that you can apply to your garden.
Fantastic.
Right.
Yeah. I know I interrupted us on our cycle and understanding of what you all do with the product. Do you remember what we were picking up on?
Yeah. So where we're going is that now pea is in storage essentially, right? And
Yes.
and
Great. Yes.
one of the research and like strategies that we're really unlocking right now is who is willing, and if you need NPK, like send me an email. Like if you guys need fertilizer, like tell me. But what we're able to do with pea in a holistic form is toggle it to meet a specific NPK need, right?
Mm.
And so if one farmer is a blueberry farmer and says, hey, I need this NPK ratio, another is a hops farmer, I need this NPK ratio, we could actually configure our back-end processing to give you the nutrients you need and the profile you need. It's like that one dog food,
Mm.
right? They like take your dog and they ingest it like, hey,
Yeah.
here's your dog food. We could effectively be doing that for bioregional nutrient networks, right? And the main point there, Gar, is like once you have this pea in, once you have this feedstock in storage, you can think of it as like a reverse mine. Like we can now take this and go and make it more applicable to whatever region. And so just to take that a step further, the Champlain Valley, which is where Burlington, Vermont is, has a lot of phosphorus in the soil, right? And so it's already a phosphorus rich environment. And so when we go out and we talk to the farmers, they say, hey, we love what you guys are doing. We want to work with you. However, is there any way you guys can pull that phosphorus out? Sure, we could take the phosphorus out. So we go and we implement what is essentially a, we call a struvite reactor, but it precipitates out the phosphorus so that you're left with a nitrogen-rich liquid fertilizer. And then that's what we bring to the Vermont farmers. Meanwhile, we've got
Yeah.
this leftover phosphorus, this powdered phosphorus. If you don't know about where we get phosphorus from, go read about it. It's insane. But we essentially mine it all from Morocco. And so now we have these little baggies of phosphorus that we can,
And which considered a finite
for sure,
resource to some degree. Okay.
peak
Yeah. Yeah.
phosphorus. It's coming, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
now we have these little baggies of Weebloom, our phosphorus product, and we can go and sell those to regions that have a scarcity of phosphorus, right? And
Mm.
it's on, historically it's been on like a bench level, like micro proof points. But now what we're looking at is like, we're going to have thousands of toilets. We're going to have hundreds of thousands of gallons of pee. And we're like maturing to the point where it's like, okay, we're growing up in our markets. We're growing up on the back end. It's time to take the opening and closing in a loop and make it a mature circular business model.
What are the scaling ambitions or business models, if you're comfortable talking about that? I mean, we could talk about it at least at what are you all thinking in terms of the East Coast
Yeah. I mean,
and onward?
I've had interest from pretty much
I'm sure.
every state to
Yeah.
bring
Yeah.
wasted there. Um, and I think that's just because historically porta-potties suck. And
Yeah.
when you go into a wasted toilet, you're like, this is sick. You're like taking a poop next to a glacier that's teaching you about, a glacier photo, teaching you about how valuable pee is. It's like really kind of cool. And so like,
God, how simple at that core element of that disruption. Just like
right. But like my whole
educating,
thing is like, I'm
just
going to
like,
spend that extra $60 to put super cool photos inside of our toilets. So when you walk in, you're like, oh, cool. Like this is nice. It does wonders, right? It really does. But
yeah.
as far as like, okay, well, what's next? Short term, we're going to focus on our current markets and push towards
Yeah.
profitability, right? Like we're going to go
Yeah.
and really double down on how do the operations work, right? How are we collecting pee? Where are we placing that pee, right? And really hone in on what we call the wasted blueprint, right? So let's just assume we
Mm-hmm.
now have this hub and spoke model where we have a successful, fully circular business model, right? And back to what I said
Yeah.
earlier, it's like in my mind, wasted. We're gonna win when we prove that not only is this more impactful for the world, but it's more profitable, right?
Yep.
At that
What?
point, we take that, we package that up, and we say, this is the truck, this is the toilet, this is the processing. We have the corporate distribution for the pea fertilizers, who in America wants to run a circular sanitation business.
Yeah.
Open it up.
Yeah, that's where I think I was headed with that question too, which was it is the wonderfully complicated model when you're talking about regionality because you can't be shipping. I mean, maybe you can, and you could correct me on this one, but I think this is where you're getting at. Is like it would be better to do that hub and
Yes.
spoke, have a corporate umbrella, be able to say, hey, we need this region to run essentially independently because we shouldn't be probably shipping as much pee back over a certain amount of distance. I'm sure it makes sense over certain
Right.
distances, but at a certain rate, it's like, no, we want this to be all funneled regionally to a central location and not nationally
Right.
to a central location. And so, no, that's
I
fantastic.
mean,
That's really
the
cool.
key term for us there is bioregional nutrient sourcing. Right. And
Right.
the
Right.
idea, as the imagery of the story goes, is that you are growing food in your town. You've got your farmers, you've got your livestock, etc. Humans are eating, humans are going pee. That pee gets processed regionally, and that goes back onto the food because it's just NPK. So now you have a bioregional circular nutrient ecosystem. And, you know, in my mind, 20 years from now, that could be across the United States, across the world, where we literally go and we empower you with the infrastructure, with the hardware, the sensing, the distribution, the guaranteed analysis, like all those things. Okay, go connect the dots for your community. This is how you do it.
Yep. Yep. Is there a I mean, this could be an easy answer if no, and y'all aren't interested. Is there a data play to this too? I mean, have you gotten that from interest from like municipal leaders to better understand the urine and do that research?
Um, I the reality is yes. Are we interested in doing that right now? No.
No.
The
Okay.
reason being is because we are more of a utility company right now, not a data
Yeah.
company.
Totally.
I do
Yeah.
believe that there'll be valuable insights down the road. Um, one of the projects I'm working on right now, as far as data goes, is empowering our users. So picture a construction site. You've got the company that's renting the toilet, the guy and the gal with the hammer, the ones using the toilet. We're going to be empowering them to understand how they are contributing to wasted by essentially creating a very simple interface that says, hey, this is how many days you contributed or wasted, and tie those wastes to some kind of rewards, right?
Mm,
The idea is simply closing the loop with a medium that says,
right.
hey, thank you for using wasted, right? It's literally a nod to the people using the toilets. And so that's one of
Yeah.
the big initiatives as far as data goes, is I want to show people that we love you for using wasted, right? And
Look at the blueberries that you helped make. Look at yeah,
right. And I
exactly.
imagine the
Yeah.
homepage is literally like year to date gallons of pee collected, right? And then you have your little calendar with green and red days, and it's like you've spent 54 days contributing to wasted toilet. You hit 65 days, we're gonna send you a hoodie because we really appreciate you.
Yeah. Yeah,
Right.
excellent. Yeah, that's fantastic. We're starting to round out the podcast doing some quick hit
Yeah,
questions.
shoot.
Um, and so I'd love to see let's just run through some of these. What do you think is the most common misconception people have about human waste?
Yeah, good question. That poop is more valuable than pee.
I am one of those. I That's actually what I was
Yeah.
thinking. Okay.
So to just
Okay.
check in on that, right? Poop is 80% water, and the rest are pathogens and carbon, and there's some nutrients in there. But compared to pee, different arena, completely different game.
NPK.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, in one sentence, why is the current sort of flush and forget system a business failure?
Oh man, one sentence.
Or, you can rip it.
Because the most successful businesses require individual accountability.
What's the holy grail of circular sanitation that we have yet to reach?
I'm gonna paint a picture here. You've got a brand new apartment in downtown New York. All of the toilets are waterless and urine diverting. All that pee goes to the basement, gets processed, and then plumbed back to the rooftop where you have a 2-story greenhouse that gets fertilized with all that waste. That then gets dropped off on a weekly cadence as a CSA, and you have a building level self-sustained circular nutrient ecosystem.
Incredible. Do you have a toilet humor icebreaker that you ever use for either deals or just introducing the concept?
I mean, I usually just play into like, is this a pee poo guy or is this like piss shit? Are we talking 1 and 2, right? And so
Got
like
it.
I kind of read that and then I go into, what
Yeah.
kind of runny punny jokes can I go with? But at the end of the day, like everyone goes to the bathroom. You're like, hey, by the way, I'm like the founder of Wasted. We're talking about crap here. Like, let's get into it. And it just immediately just opens it up. So I usually go pee poo, 1, 2, that kind of route.
Great. The Where are we at with regulation, do you think? I mean, is the barrier technology or are we still at regulation?
Technology's there.
Yeah.
Regulation is coming along. We've been at it for years now, but we're getting close. We really are getting close. So we've registered WeBloom, the first urine-derived fertilizer in the US, in 5 states now, right? Notably in California. And as far as most
Mm,
states go, they actually look to California as regulatory precedent. And so we've already
yeah.
broken down some of those barriers. And so I'd say we're right where we need to be.
Great. Um, has there been a surprising place yet where Wasted was sort of immediately adopted and deployed? And there was a donation station, but they were just like, yes, please bring it.
Mm. So it's not quite a donation station. It's the wasted conveyor. So these wasted conveyors, they
Yeah.
can be installed literally anywhere, like a backcountry hut on the top of a mountain. We work with an indigenous community in Alaska off the island of Kivalina, and we are helping implement all of their existing toilets are essentially just buckets. And so we've done a 6 conveyor pilot project and we're moving towards retrofitting the entire island sanitation ecosystem to urine diversion. And so as far as like things that came on the map out of nowhere and really made a lot of sense and having a tangible impact on real humans in a sensitive environment, that's one that's really close to home and has landed really well. Um, so that's a big one for us.
What a great project.
Hmm.
If a listener is trying to closeout question, if a listener is trying to sell a radical or taboo circular idea, and sometimes these are not that radical, not that taboo, but circular nonetheless,
Yep.
to their community, what's the first step you think they should take in sort of getting that institutional trust?
You want to weave a story that someone else can internalize as their own. And what I mean by that is like, uh, we're on the frontier of circularity, right? We're just now positioning circularity in the forefront of capitalism, right? And to go and weave a brilliant story that someone else can identify with and imagine in their mind and say, I could play a role in that, you then establish trust, you can open doors, and now you're working on the thing together. Because I think that one of the most important things about building circular is it's a collaborative process.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for joining us today.
I had a blast. This is good stuff.